for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumined, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone and welcome. I'm so super happy and excited today that I get to be in my sacred space again. So I had this huge wave of release coming through and I really was pulled to go to the waterfall space, and I've so missed my waterfalls because as a Tantrika being and a creation pillar, there's simply something about me and the way I work with these elemental frequencies that just keep on filling me and charging me up with life force, and I felt I was kind of running on empty. So the moment I came here, I got into such an elevated frequency, and all of my sleepless nights and exhaustion and fatigue that was a part of a very difficult process I was in, and I'll explain that in today's video. It was almost like it was gone in an instant, and that's how powerful this place is and my connection with this place and being my homeland in a way. So I hope you can see a little bit of the background. I know it's pretty loud when I record next to the river, and I try to speak a little louder so my voice changes a bit because I'm trying almost like to yell. But there are some important things I wish to talk about today, in the notion of the truth of ascension and the reality of ascension. We already had our video about the mystical nature of ascension, but this will be a realistic way of this grounded approach that's much needed, and I feel it's lacking in the certain communities that we now call our spiritual communities. And I want to address all the falsehoods that I've been sort of trying to pinpoint and showcase and demonstrate to people, and all these downward manipulated schemes that are not actually a part of the world of God, the world of Christ, but also, as you know, they're part of the fallen worlds and what is known to us as the Luciferian fallen agenda and her creations. Because to me, or for me, Lucifera is a being of a feminine creation angel principle, and it's a powerful light being. However, this light being is no longer a lumen light being. And the way Aurea works through me, my mother, my Elohim spirit, she is this amazing, almost like substitute for that fallen angelics in terms of bringing that immaculate conception back into life, this immaculate design. So today I want to talk about the truth and purity of this devotion to this path of ascension, because so many people have actually been missing the point. And it breaks my heart to see over and over again, and also witness and experience this through my human experiences with people, to see how much of this layering of falsehood and illusion and attachment to the earthly, and what also our beloved Jesus Christ called these swaying tendencies of the human nature, that are the fallen nature. It's not the realm of the pure creation of soul, but are the fallen human tendencies and traits or affinities that, you know, he called these lower aspects that the human needs to purge if they actually want to ascend. In today's video, I will explain more why. Because the main problem is that when something still binds you to this world, to this realm of Lucifer's creation, and a lot of people don't know of what a huge part her creation is in this world. So for example, there's this book, Satan versus the Christ. I don't know the author right now. I'll try to share it maybe next time. And in that book, it's so beautifully portrayed the amount, the level, and the disturbing nature of darkness that is present in our world. It is basically emphasized that there is no corner of our world and what we call our system, our status quo, the way we live this reality, that is not impacted and fully imbued through that Luciferian essence. That Luciferian essence, in a nutshell, we know is control, but it's also the oppression, because Lucifer, she hates the Christ in every possible way. And because Aurea birthed me, my human child, through this immaculate purity, Lucifer also hates me. But I don't hate Lucifer, you know. And I've explained before how many times she's been trying me out and testing me and punishing me, and all these experiences that I've had that every single Christ being feels. And the only reason why we still experience this is because of her. It's because of her creation and oppression to what life of divine will is, and the life lived to source. So because God, in a true matter of being that pure love, is so unconditional, right? God gave every single being, every single soul, an opportunity to choose through free will. But free will also became a hijacked concept through which we have this indoctrinated belief that we're here on earth to learn these lessons and we're supposed to be wheeled into this karmic cycle, and that's not absolute truth. So the tendency of the soul is to grow through love, but as we know in the cycle here on earth, souls have not really been growing through love. Souls have been growing through a lot of stagnancy and suppression of their life force. And this took many beings to the point in their lives when they're almost like, from the perspective of soul, they're unrecognizable. I met some humans along my path, along this journey, that I have to tell you, when I first met them and what later became of them is something totally different. And at first I contemplated on that a lot and why this is so, but I always got the same answer. It's because of what the Matrix does to this world and what the souls actually experience here through their human embodiments, and how this distorts them and how this brings them, sucks them in, or lures them into the fallen nature. And because there's still such a hiding of that truth, which is the darkness of Luciferian's design, souls cannot wake up through the human bodies, and they tend to think it's just, you know, when you talk about these things, you're seen as a fanatic, you know, someone focusing on the dark, and we're not really going to go there. It's just a boo-boo. It's just a fantasy. It's just a myth. When you live a life, as I did, on the dangerous path of unveiling simply everything through a powerful presence that for me was Aurea and her illumined light and her beautiful love, golden love essence, you get to see and you get to debunk all of that. And today I want to talk about something very important, which is the birth conception that we all receive when we're first incarnated on this planet. And today I received this guidance from Aurea and from Spirit in general, that basically the soul cannot ascend until they will disentangle from that imprinted core pattern that is not the core essence of the individualized soul presence as it is and exists in its intact purity. So first I want to say something more about my experience on earth. Like, for example, I have this tendency to sometimes, you know, people would resonate with my internal presence, with my essence. Their internal self would resonate with me, but their external self, all that still is their masks, their veils, their illusions, the density they've gathered along their journey is repelled by me, because it's these Luciferian traits, these lower human qualities that Jesus Christ also talked about, and he rendered as necessary for the human to basically integrate and move into the light by, you know, not removing them, but seeing that they're not of love, that they're not of our Christ nature. And that's an ultimate first step to take. You know, we can't talk about ascension if that's not our priority in the first place. And so now you have many souls watching these videos, following this content, and they're not doing any work, absolutely zero work. And I've met such people, and they live in their heads, they live in their imagination, they live in their mind, because their inner world is somehow absorbing this, but their outer world is not a match to this. They have still so much trauma and manipulation and enslavement. And the thing is, when you have these lower human traits, the darkness hijacks us through these lower human qualities and traits. And I've met them in these humans time and time over again. Things such as lust, greed, you know, power, lusting for power. You know, when you have a job that brings you an identity. I used to know someone who told me, I love being the boss. And I'm looking at them, wow, just thinking what this world becomes of these souls. What on earth? I never understood that. I was birthed through purity. I was a creation principle of Aurea's design, which is purity. White is still my favorite color, and it's actually not a color. It's just a white ray that I embodied, I'm embodied on. But I had to witness all these traits and qualities, which is why for some time I had to, as a human, also walked with certain humans, with specific individuals, because it was a part of my earthly learning and training. And I had to witness just how far this went, this experiment of darkness, and how smart it is, and how to every last detail it is thought through, and you can't believe it. I made, as you know, recently this video called the Matrix Illumination course, but it doesn't even cover the beginning, you know. This is so much, this is so widespread. These tentacles are everywhere. And the problem is that the souls are blind to it and they can't see. And I'll tell you what I recently experienced, because I was going through this very difficult cycle that lasted over a year, and it also included one specific individual. And it took me a while to see what was actually behind the distortion and the veil, because it included a lot of falsehood, a lot of whispers, a lot of different, you know, causalities that were not the main principle. But, you know, the soul love is there. Yes, it exists. But at the human level, we also have to witness reality as it is. This is not that sort of Neptunian utopia love that's falsehood. When we talk about true love, the love of God, and New Agers don't get it right because they actually call the God the universe. You are not a person of faith if you call God the universe. If you rendered God to universe, then you don't know what God is. You don't know the power of God, and you become small-minded and you lose your faith. And most people that I met that were actually spiritual, what they thought of themselves as spiritual, were not spiritual at all. Because even spirituality is a hijacked term. It is not the same as being Christ and pursuing the path of Christ and absolute purity. These people are pursuing pursuits that are actually replacements. They're cheap tricks and easy replacements for that which is actually the path of the Christ. And they're given to people like toys. And people are told they're going to advance if they know this, if they follow through this, if they have this knowledge. But what happens with these people, I keep noticing they never make any progress in terms of their human development. Their human personality is stuck. It has, and it keeps these lower traits, and they just keep on spinning and playing on and off. And so recently, through one very difficult relationship experience, I had to learn about this specific pattern of mine. And first, I thought that pattern was about giving, right? That I'm always the giver and I'm trying very hard, and this pattern is just somehow, you know, incepted into me. It's not my true nature. My true nature is just being Aurea, what I am, and it's enough. And it's this pure love of Christ, because I know I'm a Christ being, and I remember coming here. I know who I am. I am the child of Aurea and Aurea, the two most magnificent Elohim beings, and they're just absolutely amazing. And I know this to be my truth with all my beautiful pure light being essence. However, when I was birthed through the birth canal into the earth plane, onto, you know, through this matrix, just like anyone else, there was an exception given to me or imprinted onto me through my birth, which read something like this. And this is what I realized through this experience, which kind of I had to learn it the hard way. But if there were no such thing, if there wasn't a pain that was assimilated and, you know, it escorted me throughout this experience, I actually wouldn't get to the other side. I wouldn't get it. I wouldn't see through it. So I'm grateful for the experience, as long lasting and very arduous that it was for me. It was actually in the end very liberating. It was a huge epiphany on my part. And I realized how darkness is still able to control us. If we have one tiny, tiny little distortion left, it will still pulse through us and it won't allow us to be fully in the Christ. So you might have a beautiful Christ essence, but there's still that part that is being constantly filtered through and hijacked. And you won't see it, so it will remain dormant, and it's going to take so much life force for you to actually see through it, which is what happened for me. And I realized what this pattern was, and it wasn't actually about the giving, that I have to give, you know, and which was the main sacrifice, which the whispers told me, and these beings doing these experiences on me, which they were telling me I'm here only for others, but not for myself. But I realized what the core pattern was when I looked even deeper, and the core pattern was that I had this belief that my own purity had to somehow be witnessed in this world. It has to be seen, and it has to be powerful enough for me to influence someone who is, let's say, of this earthly fallen traits, and they have these fallen characteristics, the fallen nature. And then my purity would be so deep, and the love that I would feel for them would be so deep that it would awaken even that kind of sleeper. And they would wake up and they would say, oh, I remember now, this purity, I know it now. And when I realized that pattern, it was this huge revelation, you know, and it's kind of sitting in my gut actually, you know, because it's something I can never fully digest. And sometimes it's accompanied by this sharp pain. And even now talking about it, I'm feeling this pain now because it also produces these physical symptoms. So this symptom was almost like It was always about me. That's what Aurea told me. She said, for you, when you met someone, it was never about them. It was always about you. You were the one. You're the responsible one. You're the illumined being. You're the one that needed to pierce through and break through these concoctions, and these distortions. And then when I witnessed this, what it was, I realized how this made me always project my beautiful purity onto others. And that's why there was this naive part of me, my human persona, that believed, because I felt this pure love for someone, and I thought, well, they feel it too, because I felt my own love reflected back to me. It was just being filtered back through me. And through that, I had this deep desire to pierce through them, and they would be able to see what the truth is when you're in that purity. And then eventually, I would use so much of my life force for them and give them my whole world and give them everything, because I thought it's working. I thought they're waking up, they're seeing. That naive child in me was so poor. It was trying so hard because it was kept on spinning and looping in this pattern that was created basically through this Luciferian distortion. And it made me believe that I myself am not enough. That just coming here, being the essence of purity is enough. I don't have to perform a miracle that essence of purity wakes someone up, It's like almost that desire. If I can manage to pull that through, it's almost like you give yourself this project. But that project was not given to me through my mother, Aurea. It was given through me by Luciferian. And I had to realize this, and it's still painful for me because I'm going through layers and layers of that, and how my human child was succumbing to that, and how it was losing life force. I was losing a lot of life force for that pattern. And it kept being reinstigated and replayed through different individuals. But right now it was played very intensely because, when the playing out is most intense, it means we're very close to a breakthrough and a breakup with that frequency that is distorted. And it was so close, and I still couldn't finish it. It was like still spinning around and looping. And then one day I saw it, and I was ready to see it. And I realized it wasn't me. It wasn't my assignment. It wasn't my project. It wasn't my spirit giving me this project. It was her. It was Luciferian. She was wanting me to toil at it really hardly and to work hard and to have this belief that only if my love is strong enough. It's almost like you want to test your love. You know what that means? Christ does not test you. If your love is truly that strong, beloved Polona Aurea, it will wake the most sleepiest person alive. That's a task, right? That's a task for lifetimes and lifetimes of work. And I had to realize it's not my task. It's her reinforcement. It's the greatest lie she ever told me. That she told my human child, because when we're birthed, even for light beings, we're going to develop this personality. And through this personality, no matter how pure you might be, like even me, even myself, there's naivety because that inception is there. And you somehow foolishly believe that it's your mother giving you that. And you want to serve your mother. Who doesn't want to serve your mother? I wanted to serve Aurea. I wanted to be unconditionally always available to her. And I thought, well, she has this mission of bringing certain souls this gift through me. But I was wrong. I was so super wrong. And I have to admit that. And it makes me tear up inside because I know it's the truth. When I cry, it's always the truth. Because it's liberating me deep, deep down below. And the problem with me is that it's not a problem, but it's difficulty because I always had so much love. And to have that deep love, it means you also, with that pattern, you're going to create a disability for yourself because you're going to give that love away also to those who don't yet deserve it and who are not worthy to receive it because they have nothing back to give you. They have nothing to give you in return. So I used to take a lot of crap from people for the replacement of my unconditional love for them. Instead of slapping them and saying, look at yourself, face yourself, look at yourself in the mirror. That's what love does. Love creates the mirror, not a falsified reflection that, you take up all their patterns. That's what it was doing for my entire lifetime. I was taking on people's patterns, believing I need to purify for them because I'm so full of love. And I am, but that was not my task. And that task was draining me. It was draining my life force. I stopped sleeping, as you know, now entirely for many weeks. It was very bad. And this is how the darkness works. And it operates through light beings like myself. And I was again communicating with my home. And my beloved Aurea, he just said, my royal golden angel. He said, not even light beings who come to this planet always remain in the purity of that love, but you did. He said, you did. here you are, you're succeeding in this, you've succeeded. And it's difficult, I know, sometimes I cry because I'm also human, just like anything else. But I'm a human of divine love. I don't have these distortions that people have. And it was very painful for me to watch how these people always projected their own worst nightmares and their own darkness, how they've succumbed to evil and darkness, and projected and making it almost like my fault. That it's my fault that they're acting this way, that it's my fault that it's, and they always did the same thing. And a part of me, you know what, a part of me, a small part of me believed them. So I was always kind of trying to be even better for them. Like, I'm going to be even better for them. So they will really see who I am. You know who's the only one who's supposed to see that? Me. And it took me so long, 38 almost, not yet, but in September, if I make it that long, it took me almost that long to realize that, and to realize that people who can't even love themselves, who are still wandering around layers of illusion and darkness, they can't love another person. And if they're yet unable, it's not my job to show them what unconditional love is. It's not my job. This task that was presented through Luciferia's strong efforts to pull me away from one truth of why I'm really here was very strong. And it was like my own battle with the devil inside. It was my own battlefield, and I was fighting it very hard. But I almost felt it like, you know, these layers I had to overcome. And I asked my family how many more jumps of these breakthroughs we had to make. And just recently they said 3 more. So this was one very important one. It's actually so important that I feel like there's this whole pile of rubbish that poured now off of me. It's like it's like needing to take a shower from all of that disgust. That's not my own. It's not my creation. I've never been creating things of falsehood and illusion and distortion and lustful things. You know, when people lust for things and they're so attached to this ego materialistic world that they no longer serve the Christ. And they unwillingly, and sometimes rather willingly, become slaves of the employees of Luciferia's plan and her world. It's not a divine world. She no longer is who she used to be in the beginning, unfortunately. And in that book, it is deeply described how, in the end, you know, why God allows that to happen. People might ask themselves this question, well, then why is God allowing her to do all that havoc and ruin people's lives? Well, people make their own choices to ruin it. She doesn't. She's very skilled in making it your own fault. She's just giving you the option to choose that, and it's you choosing it. That's how skilled she is in making you perceive that it's your choice, when in fact it's her choosing for you. But it's still kind of legislatively correct in a way that she thinks she's getting away with it. But in that book is described that God, through all that she's doing, is gathering evidence in terms of all that once the time of retribution comes, everyone, and even souls who've been succumbing to this darkness, will have their, I'm not going to say punishment, but you know, their karmic decree, that justice that will need to be served. And every soul will have to repent because they've been participating in the falsification of creation and divine law. And karma exists. And it's not the karmic wheel that Lucifer has been presenting to this world through the archonic design and grid, but it's the true nature of divine Trinity and the sacred principles of the law of one, the law of righteousness, the law of serving God, the law of serving love, that ultimate love. And you can't ascend before there's nothing else but that pure Christ love in your heart. And if there's 1 ounce of you not loving yourself and the world through that love, you will still be bound to this world. And that's what Lucifer also wants to do with people like me. Even though we have such purity, she finds tricks to keep us enslaved to this planet. Which brings me to my next point. A lot of people don't realize this, and they have a different perspective about this, what's happening on the planet. I don't see it that way because I don't see these people as true prophets of God, because these people are not people of faith. These are people of spirituality. And even spirituality is a circle of Lucifer's design. Things that are supposedly spiritual but in nature, but they're actually toys for you to play with. Because, you know, in truth, the only thing we should be taught is the simplicity that Jesus Christ already brought forth, which is divine law. Things to live through and live by for you to actually understand your true divine nature. And anytime you go against that, you're in transgression yourself. It's not just Lucifera and the fallen ones, but it's also you becoming a part of that fall, and you're participating in it. So many souls have now been getting this opportunity with or through what Spirit called, I just got this message yesterday, Spirit calls this the period of grace. There was a specific, I mentioned this before, petitioning for these souls who are kind of in the middle. These souls belong to the 50-50 percentage of choosing either dark or enslavement or choosing ascension. And there's a lot of these souls. Actually, there's most number in these souls. Very few people who are actually already now in the Christ and continuously pursuing it. The majority of these people are in the gray zone. These beings don't often recognize them such, especially if they're spiritual people. They think, well, I'm a spiritual person. I'm definitely ascending because I'm a spiritual person. Being in the Christ has nothing to do. You can be just a normal person. You don't have to do anything spiritual that's now presented in our world as spiritual, Nothing. And yet you have simplicity of Christ within you, and that's all you need. So this is another trap. The second trap is, it's also described in the book how things like, mediumship. This is Lucifer's design. You don't talk to dead people or dead souls, on the other side. And these mediums that now exist, this is hijacked astral. This is her design. When a soul passes, they don't do that. They don't give you information about what you wore the last time they saw you or vice versa. This doesn't exist. It's a trick. Because that trick keeps pulling you into the lower astral planes, which is basically her design. The astral is a hoax. It's her creation. The higher worlds in which illumined beings reside, they don't teach that. And most people who hear these voices and talk to these beings, they're actually talking to these folks, not the illumined beings. Illumined beings don't speak to you through your thoughts. I've oftentimes described my communication with them. It basically comes through your own soul. Your soul has to be fully illumined through the I Am Presence. When your soul reaches a certain amount of light quotient, they speak to you directly as it's you speaking. So when I speak through as Aurea, it is her speaking through me as me. She's not an outside force of mine. She is my only force of life. She's my mother of life. And that's basically the only way for you to speak to illumined beings. They don't have voices. They're not whispers. They don't give you sentences. So sometimes you expect a guidance coming through and you're going to get it. It's not going to come from illumined beings, though. It's not going to come from ascended masters even. It's going to come from any impersonators of those, what you believe them to be, and they're not. It's so much so imbued in that falsehood that people don't no longer recognize white light from false light. It's just, for me, difficult and very sad to watch this happening. I met some people in the beginning of my lifetime who are now completely different. They've also come to the matrix. It brings great sadness to my heart, but when I read these things about Earth growing darker and darker, it resonates with my heart because I'm seeing the result. And you can look into our world, how enslaved has become, and you will see, and my message is actually much different. The message of Spirit through me is that it's going to get intensified, harder and harder to live on this planet, on Earth. People are talking about ascension into 5D or whatever. I'm not even going to comment on that because that's not what I see. Ascension, as I said, is an individual process in which each soul has to, on their own, gather a specific light, illumined light quotient. And they have to get rid of themselves with all these lower notions and tendencies, and that's it. It's as simple as that. It is your own return to the Christ. It is the christening, the coming into the Christ of your inner human child. When your human self is fully absorbed through the essence of Christ, that's truly resurrection, which then later is followed by ascension, when your soul specifically chooses that gateway or timeline for you to follow through. That's the only truth about ascension. I've often came across these pages talking about that you can only ascend when you replace your diet, these solid foods eventually going into liquid foods and then just prana, and that's the only way to ascend. That's also false. For you to stay focused on diet instead of, what is actuality, the gathering of light quotient, because normally when you gather light quotient, you're already lessening the density of that which you absorb in your body, and you no longer want to take in animals, dense foods taken by force, foods that, someone's life has to be taken for that. Nothing animalistic, nothing cannibalistic, nothing that transgresses over life. Not even eaten through anger, things like that. And in actuality, a lot of people would say, well, I'm feeling pressured when you're talking about these things. Well, that's just resistance. And the only truth is that a being who's already fully in love has zero resistance to life. That's how you know you're in the Christ. You have zero resistance. It's even zero resistance to Lucifer. You just know what's happening, you can embrace it, and that's that. So going back to the period of grace, up until this year, 2021, we had a period of grace. And even though we now see conditions on our planet worsening, and we've had difficulty of what came through last year, of what the status quo or what the forces who want to be are doing on this planet by enforcing all these laws and, the vaccinations and just trying to kill off as many humans and enslaving them and keeping the rest, the survival of the fittest, that will then be the most perfect soldiers. They're not even going to be servants. They're going to become soldiers for her army. And a lot of people don't see where this is headed because they see a very minimal picture of what's happening now. Illumined beings, we see far ahead of time, and we can tell you what's happening. So this period of grace was a period of easy opportunities when the souls could choose to make those changes, radical changes in their life, but still changes that would require many steps, and they could do it much easily. This year, this gateway is closing up, and just recently when I had experience with someone, we communed with Jesus, and he said, well, certain beings like that, he said, the last train has already left the station because they haven't chosen it. And he said, we're very sorry, but they haven't chosen it. And it was difficult for me to watch because many of us have connections and they feel like family to us, for which we really wish that they would kind of go towards home with us as well, that we kind of would take them with. And yet it wasn't our choice. It was always 50-50 with these beings. We couldn't do anything about it. In the end, it had to be their choice. And a lot of us were given these almost like presences to be present at specific times with these people. So they would feel if they would take the opportunity or not. I'll tell you, in most cases, what happened in my world, none of them has chosen it so far. So it's difficult. Yeah, it is really difficult for me to take that, but I had to recently became as neutral as I could, because Aurea told me that when I ascend, I will go and leave the planet just as I came here, which is completely neutral, benevolent, and pure. Immaculate. Which means no hard feelings, no thinking I haven't done enough, no trying, full neutral presence of the Christ. I will not look the same because, things happen along this journey, but the feeling, the essence will be the same. She said that will signify the return. Okay, so the reason why I want to talk about ascension now is because it's no longer this elusive thing, this thing we kind of put on the pedestal or talk about or project. It's becoming very real. So Aurea now wants me to talk about ascension more and more. In the next video, which is already recorded, I will talk to you about her ascension specifically and her mission plan and what I will experience that I was shown. Because let's face it, it was never about Earth. It was always about these souls who have chosen to ascend. And even in many scriptures, it is actually written about how many expected the arrival of Jesus as the Christ, as the second coming, but he never arrived because the conditions of the human status were too low. There was no point. So he kept focusing on creating this kingdom of heaven, which we know is these higher planes and realms, and creating these abodes for these beings who are ready to join again. And for many of these beings, that was once their home already before they left on these missions. And many of them are feeling this call back home now. So the period that's coming now, it's not going to be as graceful. It will be much harder for these souls who have not chosen, because in a way, as the opportunity gates close for them, they're going to start feeling the impulses of their karmic retribution already. During the period of grace, that was not yet given. So I was talking to Aurea today, and she said, well, every one of them, for whatever they've been sowing, they will have to reap They will have to face eventually the consequences of their actions, and they will have to face where they've given darkness power through empowering darkness within themselves. And it's a very difficult thing that I don't see many people wanting to talk about. No one now wants to go there. Everyone wants to talk about the light, the light, the light. Tell me yourself how many people talk about this. Jesus talked about that. He gave people the estimate. And he also couldn't heal everyone. He could only heal those that were ready. And when he merged with their essence, they took their chance. They shifted. They chose to transform. And when someone doesn't choose that, it's too late for them. In this cycle, at least. So, beloved God wants every being to choose for themselves. To, no matter what they choose, to remain sovereign, even if they're choosing tremendous darkness. Because everyone eventually returns home. It's just that many beings who will now not choose this cycle will have to have a very prolonged cycle of very dense experiences that will be very harsh. They're not going to be that easy. So it's like God kept this door open long enough. And now God is starting to see that the scales are almost like turning towards those beings who are very illumined. They've been suffering too much at the hands of God, keeping this open door. So the scales are going to return, and they're going to create a reversal. And that period of grace is going to end soon, and we're going to enter into this period of retribution. And I asked Source, I said, what's going to happen with those souls that are really going to be, left in the dark, and they just stubbornly don't want to choose it, or, sometimes they're called lazy souls. And he gave me one word. He said oblivion. And oblivion simply means being asleep to what's actually happening, being completely asleep to reality of the status quo and what's happening at the higher picture. And just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's happening. And I remember telling someone a while ago that I had this experience with, if you don't change something for you until the end of the year, then it's going to get harder and harder. And it will happen. And I know, because I've seen it. And people don't want to believe that, and they will tell you, well, who do you think you are? How do you think you know these things? And again, I'm going to say it as simply as our beloved Jesus always said it. Because I know. Because I know what Spirit shows me. And the feeling that I've been getting lately is not a pretty one. It's not a good feeling. There's lots of love, as I've shared, pouring and stirring deep inside me, but that's my love. So it doesn't necessarily mean the world in itself is shifting towards that love. There's going to be lots and lots of darkness on this planet in the years to come. It won't be easy to live here for these people who are somehow in between. And I just pray for every single one of them to eventually gather the strength to wake up a little deeper and to start doing the work of recognition of how they themselves are the darkness. So in truth, ascension is something that we need to start talking about, because it's not something we've been talking about now for years. This is the time. It's coming. For many of you, you're going to have to choose wisely. I've been shown that the darkness has been distracting me of the late to have me not focus on that. But my desire remains. I have one ultimate desire after completing my mission, which is to ascend. And I hope that many beings who've been with me for years are going to choose that in their own time frame. For me, that is the ultimate. I know how my home looks like. I know who I am returning to, my beautiful love, Aurea, and he's waiting for me already. And I'll share more in the Aurea's Ascension video. It's been a huge journey, and I am tired, to be honest. And I feel it's my time. It's my time to return soon. And I don't know when that is, but I feel it's fast approaching. So, in a nutshell, I don't have as much time as I would want to. I feel in the time that I'm given, I would like to share more of Aurea's messages directly, not just speak to you as a person and what I've gathered and from my human self, but I also want to give you some Aurea's messages directly so you can better prepare for what's coming, because it is coming. So I'm going to start talking more about ascension. Don't get scared. People get their own projections about what I sometimes share. It is my experience, and therefore it is the ultimate for me. It is the truth. It's absolute. Don't make your stories about it, but know that the reason why Spirit is finally nudging me to talk about this is because it's time. I'm not just speaking about it because suddenly I'm, making up a new topic. I'm always speaking about where the energy is. And this is where I am, and this is where maybe some of you might find yourself to be. A lot of people who've been on this path for years have been noticing they still have attachments. There's people who, let's say, for example, they really want to ascend, but at the same time they want to have physical life and they want to get kids and, all these things. This is not such a time now. Look at how our world is. People of lesser awareness, who are only here producing children, nothing else. They're just mating and mating indefinitely. They're not even consciously doing it. They're not even asking themselves, why? How would this child feel like now? What would that mean for me in my ascension path? They're just like being pulled into something that feels a norm. And that's why I'm saying this is a time that's coming now that we're all going to have to start choosing very wisely. It's not going to be an easy time. I will remain here as long as this cycle of the gateway is here, but that's what I strongly feel. Once Aurea resurrects my human self, when I ascend, this gate will be closed. So I'm still here, and as long as I'm here, the period of grace is, even though it's lessening, it's still here. My presence is already pulling away, it's withdrawing. And I still have some final messages to give and share. But I feel the essence is already moving in the direction of ascension. So this is where I'm going. This is no longer a period of preparation. This is it. This is either you focus on it and you do the work or not. So all the courses, all the things I've been preparing over the years, if you haven't even started yet with Life Force Mastery, things like that, the most essential key things for the growth and evolution of what ascension means, you better get ready. So it's not a threat, it's just a suggestion. And it's a nudge of spirit, and spirit nudges gently and gently and gently until one day it's like just slap in the face. Wake up, this is happening, this is real. Go with the flow or stay behind, right? So anyway, my dear beloveds, this is what it is. In the next video, what's coming up is Aurea's Ascension. And I hope you will make good choices for yourself. Choose wisely. Be the elder that you are, not just a needy child. I need this. Recently someone told me I can't be alone, so they'd rather stay in a condition that's just ultimately no growth than to choose something else. What on earth? What's with these people? They're not even living their soul. Who are they living then? I know what they're living. I know what they're channeling, but they don't. And they're being these needy children. And when you're like that, you're going to get your desire fulfilled. And you know who will pour that into your cup, into your mouth. And it's not spirit. So I'm just telling it as it is. I don't sugarcoat things ever. I am with purity of spirit. And I know what God is and the power of God. And everyone can still repent in their way by owning up to the lusty natures of the human flesh that they were ascribing to, and somehow forgetting the purity of God, the beauty of love that God is, and not calling it universe like it's this random thing, taking God's power away. That's her intention, for you to feel that way towards God. It's just the universe. It's sad, because so many people of the spiritual design are not really people of faith, not people of Christ. But it is what it is, and it's time for me to say goodbye in the video now, but I feel it's my time to retreat, because I'm not seeing much progress in this world, to be honest. And if you're a wise being, you know when to come, and you also know when it's your time to retreat. So in the next video, again, Aurea's Ascension, stay tuned. I hope you will watch that one, because it means a lot to my heart, and I'll explain many things. And as always, so much love, wisdom, and power. Take good care of yourself. Bye for now.